Hello, and thank you for coming to the Lewiston City Council meeting. We are going to kick things off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we will be led by Kathy Monteo, Madam Clerk.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lewiston needs to meet. You want to go first? Yeah. No. We're going to be doing Lewiston Leads this evening, and Councilor LaChapelle will go first here.
Christina, may I have you join me up front? Tonight's Lewiston Leads coin goes to a very special resident of Ward 4, Christina Blaze. By the age of 25, Christina has accomplished what might take others decades to achieve. As the head coach of Edward Little's girls' varsity basketball team, she is the youngest coach ever in the highest Maine division, AA. After taking over the program, Christina more than tripled the team's win column for the previous year, increased the fan base, and led the team to playoffs for the first time in 5 years. She also made school history at EL, leading the first team ever to win a triple overtime game. That had been interesting. Christina's success as a varsity basketball coach, as remarkable as it is only part of her story, however. As the founder, owner, and operator of the Maine Basketball Club basketball training facility in Lewiston, Christina enjoys the distinction of being one of the youngest gym owners, not in the state of Maine or the country, but in the world. In the gym she designed with 4 basketball hoops, a weight room, and physical therapy space. Christina has served over 600 athletes from ages 1 to 22 in training camps, clinics, AAU teams, has recruited athletes for elite teams and training, and accommodated 23 teams and coaches per season. While Christina has continued to steadily expand her basketball training facility and staff, this year she inaugurated a scholarship fund for athletes and families who need financial assistance through her nonprofit MBC and Friends. The fund has already awarded scholarships to 105 athletes for summer camps, clinics, trainings, college assistance, recruitment, student financial aid, and housing. When asked how she did it all, Christina answered, "I started Maine Basketball Club for the simple reason that what I needed as a child, the area lacked. I wanted to provide more opportunities in basketball I did not have, life lessons for kids, and safe space. Starting out, I was 19, going from park to park, house to house, doing basketball training outside, when I realized I had an opportunity for pursuing basketball and working with kids. At the age of 20, with no credit score, I approached realtors. I remember those days also. I approached realtors with my idea of opening a training facility. Of course, they all looked at me wondering how old I was, but I remembered thinking, I can make this happen, and I will. Fast forward 2 years, and I did just that, opened up a training facility. Christina's extraordinary contributions to the youth of our community at the young age of 25 truly embodies the timeless spirit of Lewiston. Christina's accomplishments show that with hard work and opportunity, the sky truly is the limit. Christina, it is my honor and pleasure to present you with the Lewiston Leads coin. We thank you for your commitment to an investment in Lewiston and look forward to seeing all that lies ahead for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another round of applause for our Lewiston leader. Madam Clerk, I believe we're ready to begin.
Yes, sir. All roll call votes for this meeting will begin with the Counselor of Ward 5.
May I have a motion to accept the minutes? Counselor Pease,
Second.
second by Counselor McCarthy. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're now up to public comment. Any member of the public may make comments regarding issues pertaining to Lewiston City Government. This period is reserved for non-agenda items. Public comment is also allowed during individual agenda items. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Please state your name for the record and please indicate if you are a Lewiston resident. Because this is the business meeting of the City Council, all questions should be directed to the mayor, who will ask staff to follow up at a future time. It is illegal for the City Council to allow comments related to personnel matters. All personnel complaints should be made directly to the City Administration Office. Public comment? Madam Clerk, agenda item number 1.
Item number 1, public hearing on an application from Dana's Garage, 193 Crowley Road, for an automobile graveyard junkyard permit. Requested action to grant an automobile graveyard junkyard permit to Dana's Garage, 193 Crowley Road, subject to the condition that no more than 1,000 tires be stored on the property.
May I have a motion? Councilor Clement, seconded by Councilor Pease. Discussion? Public comment? Back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Item number 2.
Item number 2, public hearing on an application from Grimmel's Industries, 50 River Road, for an automobile graveyard junkyard permit. Requested action to grant an automobile graveyard junkyard permit to Grimmel's Industries, 50 River Road, subject to the following conditions. 1, the hours of operation shall be limited to 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Thursday, and 2, maintain screening from the main turnpike.
Was that
So
Monday
moved.
through, was that Monday through Thursday or Monday through Saturday?
Monday through Saturday.
Yep, okay.
Sorry, did I say Thursday? Sorry about that.
You're okay. Councilor McCarthy, seconded by Councilor LaChapelle. Discussion? Public comment? Back to the council. Madam Clerk.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Word 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Item number 3.
Item number 3, public hearing on an application from the Lewiston Public Works Department, 420 River Road, for an automobile graveyard junkyard permit. Requested action to grant an automobile graveyard junkyard permit to the Lewiston Public Works Department, 420 River Road.
Move for passage.
Councilor Clement, seconded by Councilor Pease. Discussion? Public comment? Back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the
Counselor
vote.
from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Word 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Item number 4.
Item number 4, public hearing for an application for Main Heavy Equipment, 1445 Sabata Street, for an automobile graveyard junkyard permit. Requested action to grant an automobile graveyard junkyard permit to Main Heavy Equipment, 1445 Sabata Street.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Councilor McCarthy, second, or Councilor Harriman, second by Councilor Jelinas. Discussion? Public comment? Back to the council. Madam Clerk.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Number 5.
Item number 5, public hearing on an application from Resource Waste Services of Lewiston LLC, 38 Alfred A. Plord Parkway, for an automobile graveyard junkyard permit. Requested action to grant an automobile graveyard junkyard permit to Resource Waste Services of Lewiston LLC, 38 Alfred A. Plord Parkway, subject to the attached conditions.
May I have a motion? Councilor Clement, second by Councilor Pease. Discussion? Public comment? Back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Word 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Item number 6.
Item number 6, public hearing and final passage regarding an amendment to the Parks and Recreation Ordinance to change the time for the closure of various city parks and school grounds, as well as other housekeeping-related items. Requested action, that the proposed amendments to the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 54, Parks and Recreation, regarding the change in time for the closure of various city parks and school grounds receive final passage by a roll call vote.
So moved.
Councilor McCarthy, second by Councilor Pease. Director Welsh, please kick us off.
Thank you. Nicole Welch, I'm the Recreation Director. So the proposed parameters combined with the new position that the City Council granted a couple of weeks ago, it's going to allow us to keep Franklin Pasture a cleaner, safer place to use for everybody, visitors, community members, coaches, school staff, city staff, kids who want to use the facility in general. It'll also help combat the vandalism the facility has seen. We're still seeing continued late night, like loitering. Equipment on the fields are still being mistreated and misused. The vandalism is still, again, not necessarily as peak, but again, it's a daily basis that we're seeing activity over at the field. And especially right now with school programs that are up and running on the nights and weekends, it's even more of a busy space for everybody. So by scheduling programs and free opportunities geared towards the youth and adults, that'll help kind of preserve Franklin Pasture while also keeping the facility accessible to everybody in Lewiston. We've already talked about 2024 and what that would look like. We know when the busy times are on the turf for the kids in our community. We know that Saturdays and Sundays, they love to go out there, play kickball, play soccer. We know that in the summertime, they want to go out onto Shane's and, set up a big soccer match. So there are already trends that we're seeing that we can not necessarily close down, but what we're hopeful is that we're going to be capturing that and creating something more. Making sure that they have accessible to our in-house pop-up soccer goals, making sure that they can have pennies if they want to. And again, the position that was approved a couple of weeks ago, that's going to allow us to have somebody on the field with them, making sure that they're learning how to play the game, good sportsmanship, but then they can also help clean up the game afterwards. And a lot of these opportunities, they're going to be free. We've been talking to a lot of community leaders, and they're really on board with trying to get that up and running off the ground. So kind of that format paired with the group that's already trying to do some Franklin Pasture cleanups. We have some volunteers from that group that is willing to help oversee programs and opportunities. We really see this as a really positive move going forward.
Thank you, Director Welsh. I appreciate your help and efforts. Appreciate everything that Director Fuller has done. Superintendent Langlis is in the audience, and thanks to all the volunteers who showed up to help clean up. Discussion. Councilor Jelanis.
Thank you. I would just say, just give acknowledgement to the work that's been done to reach a place of compromise here. I think that, between the listening session, the volunteer groups that have been pulled together, and how this came together, I mean, this was not easy, for sure. And I just want to commend you on being so thoughtful and deliberate on this.
Certainly a team effort. There were a lot of people coming to the table, and it was really great to see so many pockets of the community coming together to try to figure out the next solutions to kind of move forward.
Right. Right.
Public comment? Back to the council. Councilor McCarthy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you again for all your hard work. I just have one question. What we're approving tonight, there's been no changes since the last council meeting?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Harriman?
Thank you. So thank you for all this work. I really appreciate it, and I think this is definitely headed in the right direction here. The only reason I'm going to be voting against it is because I think we should get this position up and running and get all this up and running before we close the fields down completely to the public, which is what I understand is going to happen, once this goes into effect. So really appreciate it, and I think we're going to be in really good shape next year.
Director Welsh, should this be approved tonight, the fields would be closed when?
I believe it's a 30-day period. Yep, 30 days.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Councilor Scott?
Thank you. So that was a question I was going to ask. So 30 days, you're anticipating that we'll have somebody hired at that point that will be able to move forward with having more accessible fields?
Yep, so the position was posted earlier this week. It gets posted for 2 weeks. And then after the interview period and, background checks and everything, we're hopeful for either the first or second week in November for the position to actually be hired. So we wouldn't have this person onboarded in time for the fall season, but that will give us time to train them over the winter, and really get ready to, put on some good things in the spring.
Thank you. So I would concur with Councilor Harriman. It's unfortunate that we have to close it for any time period at all. We heard a lot of discussion from community members, the importance of the fields. But that being said, this was a good collaboration. Things were done, conversations were had, the community stepped forward. Many people have stepped forward, and particularly you, Director Walsh. I'd really like to thank you, and I will be voting in favor of this. Thank you.
Yes, and if there was a time to close the fields, this would be now. They will be open for another, hopefully, 30 days of great weather. Snow will be here soon, and time to get people hired and trained, as you said, and be ready to go for the spring. So, Councilor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question. How are we doing on the volunteer program? There's still 30, 40 people, or is it dropped down? Or?
As far as folks who have turned in and completed the whole volunteer background check process, I believe we're up to 5 or 6 right now. We do have a list of 35 people who were interested in doing a cleanup day, but that, managing that group and kind of recruiting more volunteers, that will be part of the new position's role and responsibility. So hopefully, again, over the winter, we can kind of gain some more speed, get people trained, and pick up a few more volunteers.
I think it's a good idea. It's just I don't want to see it get dead in the water. You know?
Yeah, nope, it's definitely something, we saw the response this summer. We know there are people who want to give back to the community. It's definitely not something that we're going to let drop off.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Excuse me, Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
No.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6 to 1.
Item number 7.
Item number 7, amendment to the former Martell School option agreement between the City of Lewiston and Lewiston Auburn Area Housing Development Corporation. There are 2 items for requested action, Mr. Mayor. Both are printed in the book. I'm not quite sure what direction the council may want to take, so perhaps after some discussion, then one of the 2 motions may be presented by a counselor.
That is exactly what I was thinking, Madam Clerk, so thank you
Fantastic.
very much.
Thank you.
And we have Director Kermary and Mr.
Levitt.
Mr. Levitt here. Thank you, Silas. Yes, I guess if you 2 can kick things off, and then we'll be free to answer questions after that.
Great.
All right. Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, thank you
Sorry,
for...
do you mind just moving the mics closer
Yeah.
to you?
So, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, thank you for having us this evening. So, as stated, we have 2 things to discuss with the council tonight regarding the Martell School Apartments project. The first is that new information has come to light regarding the money that Maine Housing is using for subsidy as part of the LIHTC funding process. It turns out that Maine Housing is using federal dollars this year as part of their subsidy program for 9% deals. This triggers different requirements, including a HUD environmental review. So although we have performed our own environmental review and gotten approval from the State Historic Preservation Office for demolition of the building, the HUD environmental review is more stringent and requires the involvement of additional state agencies. Furthermore, Maine Housing has said that they will not start the review process until we are awarded tax credits as part of this year's 9% LIHTC funding round, which typically happens in November. Because of the federal requirements, if we apply for LIHTC financing in this 9% round, and the application is due this week, and we're fully intending to submit, we will be subject to a prohibition on what are called choice limiting actions. These actions include both demolition and environmental remediation on the project site, as well as exercising any option to purchase or finalizing any purchase and sale agreement regarding the site. So this would not change our overall timeline for developing the units. We will know if we've been awarded tax credits from Maine Housing by November of this year, and Maine Housing estimates that the HUD environmental review process would take approximately 2 to 3 months to complete. Therefore, if we started demo in January or February of this year, we would still be on target for construction closing in June of 2024 for the project. And however, if we are not awarded tax credits in this funding round, the choice limiting actions would cease to be an issue, and we would be able to start demo and exercise our option agreement. So for this, we are asking for an extension of the timeline established for our demolition of the building, as well as an extension of our option to purchase so that we can better align with the timeline laid out by Maine Housing. And then the second topic of discussion is regarding the overall cost for demolition. So at earlier meetings this year, both in May and in January, February, it was agreed that the demolition would cost roughly $400,000 due to the fact that the majority of the asbestos and other hazardous materials had previously been removed or mitigated by the school. And then our original demolition bid came back at roughly $600,000. And while that was significantly more than we had discussed, our board approved us moving forward. However, the hazardous building materials survey that we had commissioned showed significant asbestos presence in the building, and our contractor stated that the additional abatement necessary to begin the demolition would cost roughly $200,000 extra. So we had originally planned to carry that $400,000 cost of demolition outside of the LIHTC deal. And due to Maine Housing's total development cost caps, we cannot carry any of the additional $400,000 in demolition expenses in the deal without making the project ineligible for tax credits. As our cost of demolition is now roughly double what it was initially estimated to be, we are looking to split the cost of the additional $400,000 with the city, and therefore are asking for HUD CDBG funding from the city or a TIF to cover the $200,000 cost of the asbestos abatement. That's it.
All right. Just for clarification, you're looking for an additional 400 or an additional 200,000?
200. We were okay with we originally thought it was 400. We'd agreed upon that, but 600 came back. I had no desire to come back and ask for additional funds. My board approved us on the 600. When the hazardous materials survey came back and we handed it off to the contractor, he said it would be roughly another $200,000. So that amount, the board has requested that we come back and have a conversation with you about that.
Okay, thank you. Anything further?
Nope, that's it. Those are the two items.
Questions and comments from the council? Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was dumbfounded when I saw this item on the agenda for this evening. Considering the history of this property, LHA, and the city, I did not in my wildest dreams think that the council would be dealing with this again. For the general public, I want to review the history of LHA and Martell School property. I think it's important for everyone to get this all in context. 4 years ago, the City Council solicited proposals to redevelop the Martell School property. LHA's proposal was chosen as it was for senior housing and to include keeping part of the facade as a tribute to Martell School. Their offer was $134,000. The other offer we got was from developer Dave Gendron. He had offered $400,000, which was significantly more, but he would not commit to what he was going to do with that property, so the city chose to go with LHA. For 2 years, there was no activity, and in early 2021, LHA came to the council and said that it would be not be economically feasible to keep any part of the building. The council, though unhappy at this change, ultimately decided to allow this change. The council also gave our blessing to Lewiston Housing Authority to increase the number of units from, I believe the original proposal was 84, to 150 or so, as much as would be reasonable to build on that site, because we really want senior housing. Again, no action on the site by LHA. Fast forward to the end of their contract, I believe it was in December of last year, with no progress in sight and no communication from Lewiston Housing Authority, the council decided to approach Mr. Gendron and see what he would be willing to do. Dave Gendron was willing to move forward with his $400,000 offer as long as the city would absorb the disposal fees on the construction material, pegged at about $150,000. He was also willing to build senior housing with some first-floor commercial space. The council was excited to get this project going, as the need for affordable senior housing is great. The council forwarded the plans to the planning board as they have to sign off on this deal. At the meeting, Director Kilmurray convinced the planning board that they still wanted to build senior housing and they were prepared to move forward to complete the project. The planning board sided with the director. The planning board also, with their comments, made disparaging remarks about Mr. Gendron, so upsetting him that he backed out of any further interest in this project. Now we get to our last meeting on this project. We were given a proposal created by LHA and city staff. The proposal was quite the sweetheart deal. LHA would tear down the building starting by October 1st and complete the deal by December 31st. They would also have 2 years to start construction. Now the sweetheart part of the deal. The city would give the property to the Lewiston Housing Authority, saving them the original $134,000 that they had offered on the property. If LHA does not live up to their end of the bargain, the city has two choices: another renegotiation of the deal, which would have been like the fourth, or canceling the deal altogether. And get this, reimburse Lewiston Housing Authority for all expenses related to the Martell School property. I've never heard of that done with any other developer. To top it off, we had to make the decision that evening or it was not going to happen. There was no time to make any changes to the deal. Talk about making a decision with a gun to your head. So we agreed, as we were doing whatever we can to get more housing for our seniors. Now you have the audacity to come before us again, asking for an extension of the demolition deadline, and now $200,000 more from the city. Unbelievable. I can't figure out your reasons for being here, whether it's poor planning, political motivation, or just plain inept. You have had 4 years to figure out what it'll take to demo Martell School, and you wait until 2 weeks before demo is to start to realize the costs and the time frame involved. Any competent business person would have known the costs and time needed before entering into the last contract with the city. I'm waiting with bated breath for your explanation.
Well, that set a very harmonious tone for us to have a conversation about this. I appreciate that. I disagree with the timeline associated up to the point of how we got here, but it's not worth rehashing the first iteration when we were with Avesta, which COVID crushed, not us. As far as coming back tonight to have a discussion about the choice limiting actions, I don't disagree. It's unfortunate that we got to this point. Our consultants and lawyers didn't see the choice limiting action in the federal funds in the MISHA funding until very late in the game. So that I can't change. All I can do is own it. We have consultants that we pay to look at these things, and they missed that, and I wanted to come beforehand. Because had we started this process and we went through and started demolishing the property, we all would have lost because our proposal would have been deemed ineligible for tax credits, and we would have been waiting that additional year. So I'm here to try and make sure that we can potentially start again quicker and get into the deal in a normal time frame, because if we started demolition or we exercise the option, the tax credits we'd be ineligible for tax credits for the property. As for the demolition costs associated with it, we've been working with the contractor. We got the numbers back on the hazardous materials about 20 days ago. We were working with Maine Housing to try and figure out how to get them into the deal, because in our option agreement, it states we'll make every reasonable option to be able to, every reasonable attempt to be able to not come back and ask for any CDBG or a TIF, because it's something we didn't want to do. I don't want to be sitting here any more than you guys want me to be sitting here. We've been working with Maine Housing, trying to go back and forth and figure out how to make this work in the deal. They changed their programs to try and make things work for all the developers, not just us, but they changed the programs up to try and make everyone's numbers fit into them, because things are significantly more expensive these days than they were in the past, and so they work with us on those. And we can't get it into the deal. We can't get the 800 grand into the deal. We can't get the 600 grand into the deal. We're willing to eat the $200,000, and since we all came to the conclusion back in January, February, that the asbestos didn't exist and that had been taken care of in the past, and that's why the number was 400,000, we thought it reasonable to come back and look for a way to find some compromise here so we could move forward and create the much needed senior housing that you point out, because I agree with you on that topic. There is a lot of need for senior housing in this town. That's the situation. We're not I'm not here for any, I have no political motivations. I have no desire to, I really, as I said, I don't want to be here any more than you want me here. I want to create senior affordable housing. There's a situation that's in front of us that we have to rectify. If we can't rectify it, then we start over again and everybody loses on that front. You lose, we lose, seniors in Lewiston lose. I'm not looking for a fight. I'm not looking to, I'm not here for any other reason other than I'm trying to move this deal forward. As much as that has seemed, as much as you might want to characterize me as not wanting that or having some other motive, I don't. I really just want to create senior affordable housing.
Well, excuse me, I'm not done.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you. My understanding when we talked about the asbestos is that some remediation had been done, but we're unsure if there's anything more in there. So I think you dropped the due diligence on that to have it at least looked at before the thing that upsets me the most is the time frame for the last contract negotiation that we have, if that's what you want to call it. We got it that night, and we couldn't make any changes. You make any changes and the deal's dead. So that's not the way to do this. And if you're going to come before a council with a proposal where we don't have any time to do our due diligence, all of yours should be done. And obviously it wasn't. If you're back here again 2 months later asking for money that wasn't put up at the beginning. The time frame doesn't bother me as much. I know the way construction works and I know the way everything happens, so I'm not as concerned about the delay in the demolition, but I have severe reservations about any more money, because this is a significant swing from receiving $134,000 for the property to losing that $134,000 and kicking in now, when I read this, obviously you've changed what you're asking for, but the initial offer said at least $400,000. It didn't say 400. It said at least 400. So that means it could have gone significantly more. And the other thing is that the other part of the contract that was so upsetting is well, if we don't finish it, you guys are on the hook to pay it all. And that, to me, I've never heard of a developer being given any type of guarantee from the city that you go out and do it, and if you can't finish it, well, we'll pay you back. And that's not the way, I've never heard of that being done before around here. Maybe I'm mistaken, but to offer that to you, and then that's still not good enough that you're coming back to us again, I just think it's ridiculous.
Can I just point out two other pieces of this? One, if we don't get awarded tax credits in this round, they haven't announced the choice limiting actions go away. We can move those timelines up quicker and be able to take care of the demolition, and we can take care of the acquisition of the property in quicker time because we're not within a tax credit application. So that's one piece of this. The second piece of it is you guys don't have to buy the property back. If we don't get it within 2 years, you could just say keep it and figure it out over time. So there's no requirement for the city after 2 years to take it out. You have the option to take it back because you guys wanted that. And it seemed fair that if we put all the money and effort into it over that time, that we get reimbursed for at least those things that you guys required as part of that process. But you don't have to buy the property back. That's the other option on this. You could just say, fine, keep the property, and when you figure out how to develop it, you go ahead and do so. So that I don't want it to be characterized as if there's a gun to the city's head to spend the money to get that piece of property back.
I know,
Councilor
but
McCarthy, did you have something else?
the whole idea behind this process, it started over 4 years ago, was to develop senior housing. And so if you don't do it in 2 years, that's 6 years that have gone by that property has been sitting there with nothing on it. 6 years of seniors going without housing because it hasn't been developed. So I don't know what you expect of the city council, how long that we drag it on and on with a prime piece of real estate going undeveloped and those opportunities for the seniors not there.
The first 2 years that keep getting attributed to us were 100% related to COVID. So I mean, it keeps coming back as if we had something to do with it. We had a deal ready to come out of the ground and everyone ready to go forward, and all investors put a halt on every single development opportunity due to potential issues related to supply chain and not being able to put the tax credits placed in service in time. We had no control over that. I understand your frustration with it, but it wouldn't have mattered who was sitting at this table. They would have had the exact same issue. The investor would have said, we can't risk it because your placed in service date is 12/31 of that year, and it doesn't provide any time in between in order to be able to get those tax credits placed in service. IRS had not provided any waivers at that point in time for us to be able to get a waiver to allow those tax credits to roll over. We gave them back to Maine Housing. 7 days later, the IRS provided a waiver for everyone to be able to do that. There's no knowing that was going to happen. So I understand your frustration about it not coming out of the ground that time, but it was out of everyone's control in that situation.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think at this point we've spent enough time rehashing the past, and I want to talk about this proposal going forward. Administrator Hunter, we had a brief discussion this morning. What possible funding sources exist to make up this $200,000 shortfall?
Part of the discussion is for us to evaluate that. We got this information as the city council packet was being assembled, so we didn't have a lot of opportunity to do our due diligence on where our funding options. Our home funds are pretty much committed to Choice Neighborhood. We would be looking at CDBG funds, or there's always, a general fund reservation from that standpoint. But that would be the council's purview on which option that would be pursued.
You're saying that we could take it out of fund balance?
That would be an option for consideration.
Okay. Councilor Peace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. See, I don't have a problem extending the time either. 200,000, that's a different story. But if we should do something like that and authorize it, I'd like to see the clause that says that we have to pay you back if something goes wrong.
That you don't have to pay us back?
Right, if you expend X amount of dollars on the project and it doesn't go through,
I'm fine with that as long as you can't take the property back at the same time. Like if you guys want to take out the payback and the property clawback, that seems perfectly fair. That's fine.
I think that's something we have to talk about. But, that's my feelings. Thank you.
Councilor LaChapelle?
Yeah. Thank you, Director, for being here. I'm sure you did not look forward to coming this evening.
Absolutely not one iota. Not that I don't like seeing all of
Yes,
you, but
yes.
in this
We have a
situation,
pleasure.
correct.
And thank you for talking with us, not talking down to us. So I appreciate your attitude tonight. I, like my other two colleagues, have no problem understanding delays, giving you the time period. We have not had an opportunity to do our due diligence since we just got the information on Friday. So at this point, I'm not prepared to vote on the second part of that. I am prepared to give the extension, and you stated earlier that in the event that some things change, we might not need
Correct.
that other part. So I'm not prepared at this time to do it. Lewiston Housing does a wonderful job with some of the senior housing, and we want you to have it. We were frustrated, and exactly, you understand the frustration on the time delay and the frustration of feeling forced to make a decision last time you were here. It's a decision now or it's done. I was prepared, if it was a decision now or it's done, I was prepared to say it's done. Go. There's more people out there that we can start dealing with. I thank you for your attitude and the positive attitude, and we're both looking for the same process. Frustration lies in within the last year. We had $1.5 million that was spent on the Sun Journal building. We lost our co-op thing that was in the paper. That's gone, and that didn't turn out. We had $7.5 million for the Ramada Inn, and now we're questioning about $200,000 for extra work for the seniors. So, and you can probably come up with a very legitimate reason, but the optics of it is really bad. And just the appearance, because our relationship in the last year has not been the best, to say the least. So as far as I stand, I'm in favor of doing the extension, but not in favor of voting at this time on the second piece. I think we need to give staff more time to look at it, and we need to give you more time to see if it's actually necessary for us to use it. So I'm not prepared to vote on that.
Just, if I can respond to that, that works. We can submit our application on Thursday as long as we have the extension and on the not beginning any of the things that are going to cause the choice limiting actions there. And so we can come back around and have a conversation about the demolition dollars associated, because if we get the extension, we're not going to be doing that until a little further down the road, and we can see if we get awarded tax credits in that time frame. So that works fine, but we wanted to get it on the table to make sure you guys understand all the impediments that are out there right now in different forms. The biggest one being the extension of the timelines to make sure they line up with the main housing requirements for the choice limiting actions. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Scott?
Thank you. So I just want to clarify a couple of things, because as Councilor McCarthy said, when we look at your memo that you sent us on 9/14/2023, number 4, section 11, to be amended to include a provision that obligates the city of Lewiston to contribute no less than $400,000 to the development of the project to offset unanticipated environmental remediation costs. But tonight you're saying $200,000. So I just want to make sure that we've got the right numbers here, because I'm willing to have that conversation and have our administration and our staff look at a better pricing and possibility for the $200,000. We can look at that, but I just want to make sure we know that number and
Yes.
that's not going to change.
Yes, we just
Okay.
didn't have a chance to talk it through with the board before we did that, so we had to make sure we had the full amount in there before they gave the okay for the 200 piece of that. So I didn't want to put something in there that hadn't been approved.
And again, I just want to ensure that if we were to do the extension, which would take it to November 1st to January 1st, would that give staff enough time to get the information that we might need about that funding source? And would that be good for, where are we going with that particular timeline? I want to be sure we're on the same page with that as well.
We actually need to amend that timeline in there as well, because Maine Housing originally said it could be done within 2 months, and when we spoke to them earlier today, it was 2 to 3 months to be safe. And so I think the safest number we could put in there would be an extension to February.
So February 1st.
February, yes.
Mr. Mayor, can we clarify, is that to commence the project? What's
Yes,
the
to
February
commence-
1st?
commence.
That's the
Commence.
new commencement date?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commence by February 1st.
February 1st. No later than, you could say no later. If they get through the environmental review quicker than that, we can start quicker than that. If we don't get awarded in November and we have to go for the next round, we could start even faster than that. But it gives us the timeline to work with there so that we can get to the worst possible date.
So I too would be willing to go with the first piece, but I'm not willing to vote on the second one until we get further information on that. I also wanted understood that, we had a room full of seniors in here talking to us. The council was called up to not look very well during that whole process, like we were against senior housing. And I just want to reiterate that we are very much in favor of senior housing, and we understand wholeheartedly the need for senior housing in our community. And I think it's extremely important that we find a way to get more housing, more senior housing specifically in our city, and we need all sorts of housing. That being said, I wouldn't disagree that this just is so, it makes it tough, right? It makes it tough, and I understand you don't want to be here, we don't want to have this conversation again. It just, and I would agree that the perception of this is just, it's not the best. Let's work on the first, see where we can go with the second, and then we'll have further conversation when we come to that. Can we have a guarantee on a date of when we'll have that next discussion? Can we look at the calendar? Because I don't want this to wait too much longer, if we can. What's your deadline? I mean, you've got November 1st on here, so can we have this, will you be able to give us more clarification and the city have more time to find clarification in that time frame before November 1st?
Yeah, I would say on the next council meeting would be perfectly fine. This will get you whatever you need. We have everything on our end in terms of costs related to this, so.
Can I
Is
just
that
ask
October
something?
3rd?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's October 3rd is our next meeting, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
October.
Is that a timeline that you can work with?
Yeah.
Can we not have the information given to us an hour before the agenda's due? I'm just asking. Thank you. Okay, I'm good.
Councilor Clement?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've sat here and thought, since Councilor LaChapelle spoke, I thought he was quite charitable, and I'm not going to challenge anything he had to say. We have had some very bad optics this year, and I think I'm looking at the gentleman who has provided most of those optics. We talk about trust. We've talked about trust I don't know how many times. And then we have misinformation given to us. It wasn't a lie, it was a purposefully opaque statement, I believe is what it was termed. These are the kind of things that cause me heartburn, Mr. Kilmurray. When we sat here back in May, we offered you extra time on the demolition. We don't need that, we'll be all set. That's perfect. Okay. All things considered, you talk about your consultants didn't catch something, then I think that should give you cause to question their competence. Maybe you need to find some different consultants, people that will serve you better, okay? You come to us with these proposals requesting us to get involved. We are the stewards of the taxpayers of the city of Lewiston. You're part of the city of Lewiston. You have an obligation to them as well, okay? To come in here and play 20 questions with us at the 11th hour, I don't appreciate that. I'm going to swallow very hard tonight, and I'll grant you the extension. It's against my better judgment, because I think I have reason to distrust about anything you tell me, okay? You've got to come a long ways in order to correct that. I would hope that you would want to do that. There are options available to us in the future. I hope we don't have to exercise those. So, I will swallow hard, I'll give you the extension, no money, no way. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Clement. Yeah, and I mean, just for the public's benefit here, you know, the reason that we have this increase in costs is because the remediation of the hazardous material just came in far in excess of what anyone thought at the time.
Correct.
Yeah, and so this is where we're at right now. You know, through, you know, we all, through no fault of our own, we thought that we had a handle on how much hazardous material was in the building. It turns out we were wrong, and this is why we're here now.
Correct.
We have an accurate assessment of that.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor LaChapelle?
Thank you. Director Kimari, at a recent zoning board of appeals meeting, you mentioned that the state law changed or something changed that we can now require the majority of the people that go into that facility to be Lewistonians.
We can give a preference, yes.
We can, okay, so is that the plan for this facility?
Yes.
That the majority of the, well, I don't know how to, I'm sure there's going to be other people in there, but
Yes.
people from Lewiston
We'll get
that
the-
have been Lewiston more than 60 days or 90 days.
Correct.
Okay. And
We have an address here. Yeah.
who have, okay, who have an address here. All right, thank you.
We're going to head to public comment for this agenda item. And back to the council. Councilor
Just going to
LaChapelle?
make the motion.
Mr.
There's no motion on
Well-
the table.
Just to
Right.
clarify something.
Yes,
So we
Administrator
are
Hunter.
now changing the motion in your binder. If you're, it sounds like you're looking at motion option 2, that the environmental remediation will be no later than February 1st of 2024. And Mr. Kamari, the deadline to complete the demolition and environmental remediation, what are you looking at for a new deadline for that? Because that was the second part of your memo. Recognizing if the first one's changed to February, that one's going to change.
So with the additional environmental remediation, the contractor says 120 days is the safest way to sort of estimate where it's at. Likely could get it done before that if they have to rush through it, but 120 days is a reasonable amount of time to complete the remediation with that much asbestos in the building.
From this date or from what date?
From
When's
the
the
start
starting?
date, the February 1st start date.
Say February 1st, and then 120 days from that point on.
Correct. To be complete with the demolition.
complete with the demolition.
And this is the number, this number you've heard from the contractor?
Correct, yes.
Right, yeah. Who's the contractor again?
St. Laurent.
Thank you. Administrator Hunter, did you have something to add?
So is July 1st a fair date for that second date?
I would think the end of May. May. Say June 1st?
Okay, I just want to give you enough
Yeah.
time.
Start construction says June 15th.
So your motion would be changed to no later than February 1st
To begin.
to begin, and the deadline would extend to, we'll use June 1st.
Sure.
2024, and then we will align the option term with this extension and execute the necessary paperwork.
And then will administration also look at possible funding sources for,
We will bring, that will be amendment number 2, that will come back to the council.
oh, for
at
the
our next
October 3rd
meeting.
meeting?
Yes, so
Gotcha.
this will be classified or labeled amendment number 1, and then the next one obviously will be amendment number 2.
Okay. Counselor LaChapelle,
So moved.
we have a motion on the table. Do we have a
For
second?
amendment number 1.
So for clarification, Counselor,
Whatever
right.
she just said.
So what Counselor LaChapelle meant was
Yes, thank you.
to authorize the city administrator to amend option agreement between the City of Lewiston and Lewiston Auburn Area Housing Development Corporation to extend the environmental remediation commencement date to no later than February 1st, 2024, the deadline to complete demolition and environmental remediation to June 1st, 2024, and align the option term with this extension and execute the necessary paperwork to effectuate this change.
Second that.
We have a second now. Do we, further discussion from the council?
What's that?
Is that good for you?
Yes.
Anything further, Mr. Lovett or Director Kilmurray?
No.
Administrator Hunter, did you have anything?
No, I'm all set, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 4? I'm sorry, Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes,
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you both. Councilor Clement, did you have something?
yes, just as an appendant to this whole situation here, I'd ask that administration and staff look into the possibility. It's my understanding that there are other entities out there that would be willing to try and develop this property and can provide us with information as to what they might be able to do. I think we need to look into that in the interim so we don't lose any further time should this fall through the cracks once again. I don't want to be a naysayer, but history, I think, shows us we have some problems we have to overcome. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
I believe we're at item number 8, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Yes, item number 8, acquisition of property at 237 Central Avenue rear. Requested action to authorize the city administrator to acquire property at 237 Central Avenue rear and to authorize the city administrator to execute the paperwork necessary to effectuate the transactions so the planning board's conditions are generally satisfied.
So moved.
I have Councilor Peace.
Second.
Second by Councilor Harriman. Administrator Hunter.
Yes, this has gone through the planning board. This is now at the city council level. And then at this point, we will, once acquired and the paperwork's executed, we will move forward from that point.
Discussion, questions from the council? Public comment? Back to the council. Do we have questions? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Council from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Item number 9.
Item number 9, confirmation of Mayor Shalene's nomination to fill the current vacancy in the Ward 4 position on the school committee. Requested action to receive the mayor's nomination and to appoint Kristen Cloutier to fill the vacant Ward 4 position on the Lewiston School Committee, said appointment to be effective as of September 20th, 2023.
So moved.
We have Counselor Jelinas, second by Counselor Harriman. And I'll kick things off here. I had a wonderful conversation with Representative Cloutier, and she's in the, given the late stage in the term, she's the best person to fill this position. She has served on the school committee before. She has served on the council. She's been mayor before. And she has the experience and ability to hit the ground running. And if I remember right, you checked your calendar and you can make all the meetings. Yes, so yeah, I enthusiastically endorse her nomination. Councillor Scott.
Thank you. So I've served with Kristen Cloutier for a few years on the school committee, and she's an excellent school committee member. I would remind the council that there are only 6 meetings left. There is a tremendous learning curve for some new folks to be on the school committee. A lot to learn, and I really appreciate the fact that the mayor nominated somebody that's going to be able to attend our meetings, hit the ground running, like you said, and know what's happening. We've got a lot of big discussions coming forward, and I look forward to voting for Kristen as the new member of the school committee. Thank you.
Councillor Jelinas.
Thank you, Mayor. I like what you referenced, Councillor Scott, about the learning curve, because I think it's a big deal, really. I just want to thank, certainly Kristen Cloutier has my vote for sure. Her deep commitment to this community and just her knowledge going into this, so very enthusiastically be voting yes for you.
Councillor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I would move to lay this on the table to a date specific, that of November 21st, at which time we will have had an election, which is coming up in just a few short weeks. And at that time, the person who wins that election, there are 2 contestants there, whoever wins that election could be appointed to fill out the remainder of the term and start anew again in January. I'd make that in the form of a motion.
We have a motion on the table by Councillor Clement, and we have a second by Councillor LaChapelle. Discussion on this motion. Councillor Harriman.
Thank you. I would not.
One second, Councillor. Yes, Councillor LaChapelle.
I believe the only discussion can be had is of the tabling, not of anything else.
Correct.
Discussion whether this is a good idea or not.
The motion is to table this matter to the meeting of November 21st to allow time for the November 7th election to occur, to take place, and then at that time to consider appointing the person who was elected during the November 7th election. So the motion basically is to postpone this matter to a date certain. Under Robert's Rules of Order, it is debatable, but it's limited to the contents of that motion, which is to postpone this matter to a later date.
Correct. Yes, so we will have debate on whether this is a good idea or not. Councillor Harriman, please proceed.
Thank you. So I don't think this is a good idea because I think representation is important. Ward 4 residents, all the Ward 4 constituents will go without any voice on the school committee until well after November 21st. Basically until the new year. There might be a couple meetings in December. So in order to not disenfranchise everyone who lives in Ward 4, I think we should go ahead with this appointment and let them have a voice on the school committee.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you. So I would concur with that. I think it's extremely important that we fill the position as soon as possible. And if I recall, 2 years ago, when there were council members that left their seat early with only a couple months left to serve, it was you, Councilor Clement, that suggested that there not be anybody that was being elected at that time serve in the seat, that it would be somebody else. And that was when the seat for Ward 2 was up for being filled by the mayor of the city. So I don't understand honestly why filling this position now with somebody that has the knowledge and has the commitment to our community is going to be a detriment in any way, especially if we're waiting till November 24th, when there possibly will only be 2 meetings left of the school committee in December. I have an issue with that.
Councillor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, if I could direct to the lady from Ward 1, my stance at that time was that we not appoint a candidate to the position. We had an active election upcoming, we had candidates, and there was a candidate to be appointed to that position. Our thought at that time was that nobody who was a potential candidate should be given a leg up. In this case, it's entirely different. We're waiting until after the election. We'll have a determined winner, and that person can be appointed. I think it's common sense to do it that way. That's all I have to say at this point. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We're now heading to public comment for this agenda item.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor, one second. Councillor Clement?
I think this motion is on the table, laying on the table. I'm not sure that public comment is allowable on this motion. I think we have to vote on the tabling motion.
I disagree. Madam Clerk?
Right. Robert's Rules of Order unfortunately does not talk about public input. It's designed for the assembly, which is the city council, the elected officials up here. So it's really the council rules, and our council rules do not go into types of motions that public can comment or not comment. It just talks about the agenda items in general. I don't believe that our rules have any language in there that a member of the public cannot comment on any particular type of motion other than if it's related to personnel matter and the comments that you state, Mr. Mayor, at the beginning of each meeting.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
My name is Megan Parks. I am a resident of Ward 7, and I own property in Ward 2. I'm also the chair of the Lewiston School Committee. I agree with Councillor Scott and I think Jelines's comments about Councillor Scott and Councillor Harriman's comments about representation. The Ward 4 deserves representation between now and November 24th or 21st, whatever day is proposed. And I would also like to remind the council that there is a possibility that neither of the candidates that you would like to appoint after the election could win. They could both lose, and then you would end up appointing somebody else that's not in the favor that you're leaning towards. I think it's important to put somebody in the role now that knows what they're doing. It's always rough start. We're gonna have a rough start in January with some new incoming school committee members, and I think it's important to keep it as fluid as possible. And Ms. Cloutier has a history with the school committee, so that'll make it very smooth. Thank you.
Back to the council. Councillor Jelines?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can't vote in support of this motion. I feel like the work that has to be done by the school committee is important work. Even if we're looking at 4 meetings, I think, between the timeline that we're talking, it's just too important to take a voice when we have the opportunity to, appoint someone who's been brought forward to us that has the experience, not only so that Ward 4 has a voice, but also so that the school committee is fully staffed. And this doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It feels very political. It doesn't really feel like, I just really feel the school committee needs to have school committee members, and we have that opportunity to do this. I can't vote in favor of something that just feels a little disingenuous.
Councillor Harriman?
Thank you. Yeah, I still maintain that the over 5,000 people in Ward 4 deserve to have a voice on the school committee, not have that voice taken away from them, and especially when there has been no objection voiced to the appointee. Thank you.
Councillor McCarthy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As far as representation for Ward 4, we have the at-large chairman, who is supposed to represent the whole city, and we have the city council representative who represents the council but can also has to deal with the whole city as far as her representation isn't directed to any one ward. So I think it's disingenuous to say that Ward 4 would not have representation And the way I looked at it when I first saw this and thought about it is by appointing the person who wins in November, and I don't understand how there's only two candidates and how both can lose. I haven't figured that one out yet, so if someone could explain that to me, I'd love to hear that. But I think it would give that person a couple of meetings ahead of time, and it would let them get their feet wet before we get into January, and it may make the transition in January a little easier because there would be one less person that is completely new to the board. So that's my rationale, that I think it would give a heads up to the person who wins, and that's the way I'm going to vote. Thank you.
Councilor LaChapelle?
Thank you. This in no way has to do with Representative Cloutier. Her credentials are impeccable. Her dedication to the city is beyond question. The desire to get the newest person that gets elected into that seat the fastest possible way, it would be the desire. Missing only a few school committee member meetings is not going to affect the outcome of that committee. I think we give the opportunity to whomever wins that seat, appoint that person to the seat for the remainder of the year. Thank you.
Councilor Scott.
Once again, I will say that I wholeheartedly disagree with that way of thinking, and I would like to ask a point of clarification. Councilor McCarthy just referenced that he was okay with the November 25th. Was this discussed outside of council prior to this meeting tonight, that you were going to table this so that Representative Cloutier would not be on the school committee? I asked that question.
Councilor McCarthy.
I came up with that on my own. That was my reasoning by looking at it. Whatever the other counselors, however they came to that conclusion, but my feeling is this close to the end of the year that that would be the smart thing to do, to give that new person a couple of meetings under their belt and give them a leg up before they start in January. It's something that I would want to do if the opportunity was in my situation, and to go. So that's how I came up with it. So no one told me to vote this way. It's how I feel. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
1 second, Councilor Clement. Yes, my position hasn't changed from a few minutes ago. I wholeheartedly appreciate Representative Cloutier coming forward and being willing to serve, and yes, I maintain that she can hit the ground running and do a wonderful job representing the residents of Ward 4. Councilor Clement, did you have something?
Yes, sir. I don't denigrate Representative Cloutier whatsoever. I did have a discussion with Madam Clerk, I'm not sure what day it was, Friday or Monday, and as to the mechanics of how this would work with our election coming up, but that's it. So yeah, there was discussion outside of the council, but I can talk with anybody I'd like at any time about anything, as long as we don't meet as a quorum. I believe that's the way that works.
Anything further, Councilor Clement?
No, sir.
Thank you. Further discussion among the council? Councilor Harriman, did you have something?
Thank you. I'm just curious as to how Councilor Clement and Councilor McCarthy came up with this exact same idea independently. This idea of waiting until after the election and then appointing the winner of that election for the last two meetings. It just seems like a very strange coincidence. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Make sure where we're voting. Same?
Correct, yeah. Madam Clerk, could you read the motion and then call the vote?
Sure. The motion before you is to table this item to the November 21st City Council meeting, and at that time to consider appointing the person who was elected for that ward at the November 7th election. All set for the vote. Counselor from Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
No.
Ward 1,
No.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
No.
Ward 4.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 4 to
Point
3.
of order, Mr. Mayor.
Counselor, go ahead, Counselor Herman.
Is coaching another counselor how to vote part of our rules? When
Not-
Counselor Pease was asked for his vote, Counselor LaChapelle whispered yes to him.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Yes, he did. I heard him.
I-
Maybe you didn't
I-
hear him, but I did.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
One second, counselors, we're not going to be arguing here. Madam Clerk, would you like to say anything at this point?
The council has copies of the rules and knows the contents of the rules. I don't know that there's any language in there regarding it one way or the other, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, did you, the motion, what was the result?
Yes, and so that motion on number 9 passed by a vote of 4 to 3. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 10.
Item number 10, appointment to the Board of Appeals. The council has an application before them that they are welcome to review and discuss, and then there is a suggested wording for a motion in there if someone is interested in proceeding accordingly.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Counselor Clement.
I would move to appoint Bernard McAllister of Ward 5 as a full member of the Board of Appeals for a 3-year term, said term to be filling a current vacancy and therefore will expire on January 7th of 2025.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and then by Counselor Clement and seconded by Counselor McCarthy. Discussion from the council? While we're thinking, public comment? Back to the council. Counselor Clement?
Very briefly, if everyone's read their packet, they see the application from Mr. McAllister in there. I personally have known him for at least 40 years. He's a retired police officer from the town of Lisbon. He worked thereafter in the Androscoggin County District Attorney's Office as an investigator and trial assistant. He's a former landlord of several properties in Lewiston. He has a keen interest in zoning and things of that nature. I think he's very circumspect, and would make a very good member of the Board of Appeals. Thank you.
Just for clarification, Madam Clerk, what would this, should he be approved tonight, what would be his term?
It would be filling a vacancy, so it would expire January of 2025.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion from the council? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Council from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Agenda item number 11.
Item number 11, appointment of voting delegate and alternate delegate to the Maine Municipal Association annual meeting. Requested action to appoint City Administrator Heather Hunter to serve as the city's voting delegate and to appoint City Clerk Kathleen Monteo to serve as the city's alternate delegate to the Maine Municipal Association annual meeting to be held October 4th, 2023 in Augusta, and to authorize the city clerk to execute the credentials form for the Maine Municipal Association.
So
A
moved.
motion, please. We have Counselor McCarthy, followed by Counselor Pease. Discussion? You two willing volunteers, thank you so much. Public comment? Back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Council from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
And item number 12.
Item number 12, resolve pertaining to the safety of our children. Requested action to adopt the resolution pertaining to the safety of our children.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Counselor McCarthy, seconded by Counselor Clement. Discussion? Councilor Jelinas.
Thank you. When I read the email from my fellow counselor from Ward 6 last Friday with an attached resolution, I immediately wondered how this made it onto tonight's City Council agenda, for two reasons. First and foremost, after months of promises regarding improved transparency, improved and open communication, improved teamwork, this feels like just more disrespect. I had heard nothing of this. This feels like the status quo. Clearly, in order for this to move forward, there had to be a majority. There had to be 4 councilors that came together in order for this to get to this point, in order for this to pass the agenda submission deadline. Secondly, the email and resolution speaks of risk to our children, safety of our students. I've dedicated my entire life to children, so I take safety very, very seriously. However, there was nothing outlining information that pertained to what that danger and what that risk was, nothing at all. I am familiar with the work that Maine Inside Out does, very familiar actually, and the valuable work this organization has done in the schools. It's also my understanding, and I should say I appreciate the emails that have come in supporting their work as well. It's also my understanding that their involvement with the Lewiston Public Schools has been put on hold. And for what reason, I don't know. I mean, I can surmise, I'm not sure. But the other reason why it strikes me odd that this is on tonight's agenda is this seems to be something that should be taken up by our school committee, our very competent superintendent and school committee, conversations that can be happening with those people as well as the co-executive directors of Maine Inside Out. Thank you.
Councilor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Councilor Jelinas' concern, this was made on the agenda. I had a conversation with the administrator on Friday afternoon. Our rules call for submission of regular agenda items on Wednesday noon prior to the following Tuesday meeting, unless it is an emergency. In this particular case, I think this is an emergency because the school committee meeting wherein this may be decided will occur before our next meeting or a chance to put it on the agenda. So therefore, it is the purview of the council to either admit this or not admit this to the agenda. They can vote it down if they like, but it was done in good faith, and as soon as I got off the telephone with the administrator, I believe there are several people on city staff that can verify the fact that it was sent out to all members of the council. With it not appearing on the agenda, I was not going to send out an email. I wouldn't have brought it up. But where it was determined that it could be put on there due to the emergency clause in our rules, I sent out an email immediately thereafter with a copy of this resolution and a brief synopsis of my reasoning for it. So I just leave it at that. Nothing untoward occurred.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you. First, I'm not going to discuss Maine Inside Out. That is a discussion to be had by the school committee and not the city council. The city council has no legal authority to make any organizational decisions about who the school department has an MOU with. And I would ask our city administrator to get a legal opinion on the council making motions or resolves regarding school committee matters. I will be making the same request of the school committee at our next meeting. Our charter says under Article 5, School Administration, Section 5.04, Powers and Duties, General powers and duties. The school committee shall have all the powers and shall perform all duties necessary for care and management of the city's public schools pursuant to the general laws of the state of Maine, which grant these powers and responsibilities to the school committee. By our rules of governance, Section 8, Number 3, Letter C, the city council representative to the school committee will have a regular agenda item at both meetings to report what is happening with both bodies. Nowhere, and as unfortunately this resolve was not read to the public, I'm not sure the public has all the language there, but I will state that nowhere in any of our rules of governance is it stated that the representative will work to defeat, encourage, or personally vote a certain way because a majority of the council directs that. The city council representative on the school committee is also a sworn member of the school committee and should act and vote as such. Also, by our rules of governance, Section 3, under Agenda, letter A, all agenda items must be in the office of the city clerk no later than 12 noon on the Wednesday prior to a regular meeting. No elected official initiated agenda items will be accepted after the deadline unless an emergency shall exist. In this case, an emergency shall be defined as any business which, if not addressed immediately, will cause irreparable harm to the city. I repeat, will cause irreparable harm to the city. When you spoke with the city administrator to add this to the resolve to the agenda after our cutoff date, did she ask you if you spoke with other counselors? Did you speak to all of us? Or did you just speak to 4 counselors?
I didn't speak to
I'm not finished. Thank you very
Counselor
much, sir.
Clement, thank you.
Thank you. Did the 3 of us just hear about this on Friday afternoon, well after our agenda cutoff time? Did you once again completely disrespect myself and 2 other counselors by not asking us? If you spoke with 4, as I heard you told our city administrator, would that not be a quorum of counselors discussing something outside of city council chambers? Would you, as the former city council president, accept this behavior? Once again, our rules of governance don't seem to apply to you. As of right now, the subject of this resolve at this time is not on our agenda for the school committee. It is currently a tabled item, and Maine Inside Out is currently not in our schools. Again, an emergency item for immediate business is defined as something that will cause irreparable harm to the city. How is this an emergency? And I'll ask you, bullets are flying around our children every other day. Youth in our community have recently died by gunfire. That's not an emergency. That conversation is anti-police by your standards. Don't play concerned about our children when you want to cut fundings to our school, stop funds for much-needed roof repairs, or serious mold issues our children are exposed to daily. This isn't about the safety of our children. It's about politics and upcoming elections, and you wanting to control not only this council, but also the school committee for your personal agenda. You're quick to point out, especially to me lately, there's political grandstanding, pandering, posturing, and indignation. Maybe it's time some on this council start looking in the mirror. I will be voting no on this resolve.
If the chamber can please be quiet, thank you. Please, if the chamber can please refrain from any outward expression of approval or disapproval, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Councilor Harriman?
Thank you. So I concur with everything Councilor Scott had to say, and this is just more of these gross power grabs. The very first agenda item that we took up as a council, agenda item number 1 on January 4th, 2022, was for our rules to govern the city council. And Councilor Clement wanted to add a clause that says the city council representative to the school committee is, as the title implies, the voice of the city council, and as such shall represent the wishes of the majority of the council and not act as a separate and detached agent. This has been continuing throughout our term, people trying to grab power that's not theirs. The school committee has their duties. They look after the schools. We're the city council. We have no jurisdiction there. So this whole resolution is really just a sham. I would also ask, who approved this to be on the agenda? Asking of city staff.
I was told that there was a majority of the council that wanted to put that on. We questioned the emergency nature. Correct.
And it's just a resolve that, covers an item that we don't even have jurisdiction over. So I don't see how that could be an emergency. And if 4 counselors met outside of our meeting and told you that they approved this, that's a complete violation of open meeting standards. I'm also really disappointed that you would put this on the agenda anyway. It's a clear violation of the city council rules. It's more than 2 days past the deadline.
But if the city council has a majority that says that, you all agreed to police each other. Staff was not to police the city council rules.
So the majority of the city council should have met in a city council meeting to determine that, not met outside the meeting and then directed you to do that. I'm just really disappointed in city administration here and in my fellow councilors. This is just a complete violation of our rules. Thank you.
Councilor McCarthy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm at a loss here that I'm bracketed by two councilors that have never heard of using a telephone. We did not meet outside of the council. We spoke by phone individually, which is well within the rules of the city council. So we did not break any rules. Don't go out there and spread all these conspiracy theories that we discussed this as four. A quorum is if the four of us are together. If I call Lee and get his opinion, and then I call Larry and get his opinion, and then I call Rick and get his opinion, there's nothing wrong with that. Now my idea behind this resolve is to show how the city council feels about this MIU. And I think that's the elephant in the room that I think people need to know. I know Councilor Jelinas didn't know why that it was suspended in the schools. It was suspended because one of the people associated with that group murdered a couple in Westbrook in front of their children. Now, this is someone that was part of their group. They may not have shown up at Lewiston except for the one time that they said, but they were associated with this group. Sorry. I'm a little worked up when people accuse me of things. I'm sorry, I'll try to calm down. This also goes to the fact that these people could not pass a background check. But yet, if I want to take my grandchildren on a field trip, I have to pass a background check. But yet, you're going to allow people that are convicted felons in trouble, could not pass a background check, but it's okay for them to be alone with our children and teach them in the schools. And if they say they have a vetting process, well, some people did some digging into this Mr. LaGrange's past. And if you look if you look for some news articles on him.
Councilor, if you could just lower your voice just a little
I'm
bit.
sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's my Irish dander getting up. If you look at his Facebook page when he's got guns and he's got all of this, and if you look at one incident that was reported that his roommate was afraid of him and the police were called and involved, this is all stuff that is common. You would think that someone at least vet and look at their Facebook page or Google their name and find out what they're involved in, whether they're even emotionally stable to be in a group around kids. So I question their ability to screen these kids that are going to be these adults that are going to be around our children. I have grandchildren in the school department. I do not think it's right to have people with these backgrounds working with these children where a parent isn't given the same courtesy. They have to pass a background check, but we're going to let all of these individuals working with our kids. So I was appalled to find out that this was in the school to begin with, and then I thank God they suspended it after the murders. But to see it come back up and be considered again, it just blew me away. So I'm glad that this is on the agenda so I can voice my displeasure with this item. And one of the reasons why this was considered an emergency, because the chairman of the school committee was posting on Facebook on how can I get this back off the table and back on the agenda. And that's why I consider it an emergency, so that the general public and the school committee knows how I feel and how the majority of the council feels. So that's why it's there. I take offense by what the two counselors on either side of me said. I think it's well within the counselor's right, my right, to voice my displeasure with something the school committee is doing, and that's what this resolution does. Do I agree with all of the wording on it? No, but I didn't have anything to do with the resolution being made. I support the idea behind it, and I think that if this passes, if this MIO group gets let back into the school system, it'll be a travesty for the parents of the kids and the kids themselves. Thank you.
Councilor Jelinas?
Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Clement, did you have something?
Yeah, point of order. Our council rules strictly state that no councilor shall speak twice until all have been given an opportunity. I would inquire whether or not everyone who wishes to speak has been given that opportunity as of yet.
I appreciate that, Councilor Clement. At this point, I would like to start with Councilor Jelinas. Then my plan was just to simply move along the days
In
here.
other words, you're going to violate our council rule. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. You've made yourself on record for that.
Please continue, Councilor Jelinas.
When we talk about this meeting the definition of emergency, I want to be clear that the emergency was not made, the perceived emergency was not made clear. It was not communicated. It was not outlined in any of the information that I received. I take safety for our students very seriously, like I said before, so I need to be clear that I'm not mistaking that. All of this stuff that's been discussed, I voted for my school committee member for my ward because that's their job. This is what they do. And again, I think that this whole business between Maine Inside Out and LPS really belongs on the table at school committee. They're competent to be making these decisions, to be looking at what needs to be looked at, if anything needs to be looked at. I'm not even quite, for me, it's not my business. I'm not even talking about that. I feel strongly that this is an item that should have stayed at the school committee level. And it sounds like, some decisions have been made from what you've said, Councilor Scott. And I trust that that's the right decision that's been made for whatever reason. But I mean, to bring it back in this way, for the reasons that I outlined earlier, I can't support this.
Councilor Clement?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, several things have been said here which are just not true. Number one, there's nothing in this resolution that has anything to do with the school committee or business of the school committee. Read the two enabling
Sorry,
clauses.
Councilor Clement, do you mind just speaking into the mic?
Well, I didn't want to commit the same faux pas that Councilor McCarthy did, because I get a little hot when people grandstand and say untruths. The enabling clauses of this resolution direct our appointed representative to carry a strong message of disapproval of this partnership to the school committee, and further resolves that we respectfully request she do everything in her power to encourage her colleagues to defeat any motion to reconsider, and if necessary, she personally vote in favor of leaving the item on the table. Now, this item was laid on the table with no date specific. It can be brought off the table. From what I understand, the school committee operates under Robert's rules. You would need somebody from the majority vote the night this was laid on the table to bring it forward. If that were to happen at their next meeting, and it has to happen at their next meeting, because if it goes beyond their next meeting, the point is moot. The matter is dead. So therefore, we don't meet again until after their next meeting. In talking with my counselors individually, we determined that we would like to send this message. We have checked with legal counsel, okay? We've checked with a bar-admitted attorney, and nothing in this resolution violates anything. I do believe that somebody from the school department checked with their attorney, was all upset because we were directing the school committee to do something. Nothing in here directs the school committee to do a thing. The direction is towards our council president, who happens to be our appointed representative to the school committee. And nothing says we can't say, we want you to carry a message to the school committee as to how we as a body feel. That's what this resolution does. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Pease, would you like to weigh in?
Yes. I received the call, and when I saw it, I read through it, and I was disgusted that this is coming back to haunt us again. I resent the fact that everybody seems to think that there's a foursome here, and we do everything we want, and vote the way we want, and have no consideration over anybody else. Well, I beg to differ. I have my own mind, I speak my own mind, I vote my own mind. I don't need anybody to tell me how to do it. When this came up, I thought it was a good idea. Thank you.
Reserve my comments after public comment.
Councilor Harriman, did you have something else?
Yes, just a few points. I don't know that it really matters if 4 counselors meet in a room together or if they just call each other on the phone. It's still 4 counselors coordinating outside of an open public meeting as they're supposed to. Also, the city council can't direct school committee members how to vote. That is their purview under the charter. So this resolution really doesn't do a whole lot. Also, if you have an issue with a school committee item, you can go to their meeting and comment. We don't need to create a resolution and then try to force one of the school committee members to vote a certain way. Just go to their meeting and speak. I've been to a few of them. I watch them all online, all the ones I don't go to. That's the way it's supposed to work. Not trying to strong arm people and grab power that isn't yours to take. So, thank you.
Councilor McCarthy.
To your point about commenting at the school committee meeting, no comment was allowed on this item at the last school committee meeting, so that's sort of a moot point. Now, if it comes up again, maybe there will be a comment section, but the first time it appeared, there was no public comment on this item. And if you watched this school committee like you said you did, you would have realized that. Thank you.
Councilors, thank you. Councilor Scott, did you have something before we head to public comment?
I'll reserve till after public comment.
Okay. We are, in fact, now it's time for public comment. Please proceed to the podium. We will observe a strict 3 minutes here and state your name and where you're from.
My name is Amy Ranger, and I teach theater at Lewiston High School. And I was at the school committee meeting, and I also was not able to speak. As you said, McCarthy, I was frustrated by that as well. I am deeply concerned with the safety of the students, as you can imagine, as the teacher there. And I was upset to see this on the agenda as well, because I do not see this as an emergency at all, especially with it being tabled at this time. What I really wish, genuinely, is that anyone who has an issue with Maine Inside Out would have direct conversations with the people who run it, because the work they do is so important. I have with me growth charts that all of my theater students have made, and I would love for you to look at them if you care to after the meeting. I also want to share a quote that I feel is relevant, if you will indulge in a Toni Morrison quote about education. If education is about anything other than being able to earn money, and it may not be about anything more than that, the other thing is intelligent problem solving and humans relating to one another in mutually constructive ways. But educational institutions and some of our most distinguished scholars have considered cooperation among human beings and mutually constructive goals to be fourth, third, and third-rate concerns, if they're concerns at all. I urge you to consider that intelligent problem solving and relating to one another in a human way is of a deepest concern. I look at criticisms of high school students today, and what I hear consistently They don't know how to talk to each other. They don't know how to be with each other. They don't know how to stand up for themselves. They have no voice. There are all these criticisms with social media, yada, yada, yada. And to take away something theater-related is taking away the thing that would help them grow in that way. That, to me, is a deep concern for the safety and the well-being of our students, and then therefore our future. I had the pleasure of working with Maine Inside Out this summer, and I know my students, and I would love to have you come into my classes. I don't know if that's allowed, but or speak with me personally about the growth I've seen that theater can do, and I just stand by Maine Inside Out. Thank you.
Further public comment?
My name's Kristen Cloutier, and I live in Ward 4 now, since redistricting. So to me, there are two issues here. One is the issue with Maine Inside Out, and the other is with the transparency of the council. And I have a question for Councilor Clement, who just stated, we consulted a bar-admitted attorney, and I'm just wondering if you can tell me who the "we" is. I'm wondering if those were individual conversations with an attorney in the same way that there were individual conversations about the resolve, or if that was a group of you consulting an attorney.
Mr. Mayor, with your permission.
Councilor Clement?
Thank you.
I was told that an attorney was consulted on this matter. I suggested in a conversation with one of my fellow councilors that in order to make sure that this was absolutely apropos, that we consult with a learned attorney locally who has advised us in the past on other matters, and I was told that he had already been consulted and he approved of it, and in fact, he suggested a couple of different words be placed in here of a stronger nature than what we had originally said. Any conversation between councilors, I don't remember who I talked with first. I talked with individual councilors. I didn't talk with Councilor Pease. I talked with Councilor LaChapelle. I talked with Councilor McCarthy on separate occasions, and recognizing the fact that this may or may not come off the table. If it were to come off the table and it were to be approved at their next meeting, I think the safest thing for our children in this regard is to leave it on the table. I mean, I not only refer to the one gentleman who's been brought up here before. There were comments made that night that he hadn't murdered anybody yet. Yeah, but he was out on bail for arson at the time, as I recall. I mean, that's certainly not a crime of violence at all. I just don't see the rationale behind allowing these people unsupervised, unchecked, to be with our children alone during the school day on school property. And that's the conversation that we had, okay? The local attorney vetted this entire thing, and like I say, he made 2 word changes, and I suspect that Councilor LaChapelle, who had that conversation, I believe that's a privileged conversation between attorney-client, but if he wishes to divulge that, it's up to him. Thank you.
We're heading, thank you, Councilor Clement. We're still in public comment. If anyone wishes to speak, please head to the podium.
Hello, my name is Billie Jane Cook, and I live in Ward 5. And I've heard a common theme in the last 2 city council meetings from you, Mr. Clements, and that was the fear-mongering about the felon on the ad hoc mayor safety committee, when the fact of the matter is that person had paid their debt to society, and they had definitely changed for the better, but we need to get that fear-mongering out there while we're talking about political grandstanding. And I feel that this is very much the same way. This is a person that did something that's not necessarily being involved with our children, and yet we want to get that fear out there that that's what's going on.
Whereas there are a bunch of people in that organization that have paid their debt to society and have changed for the better, and they're bringing that to our children. And speaking to Amy, I can tell you that my son was in your theater class last year, Dominic, and just having him in there, it was amazing to see the growth in him. Doesn't mean that he was involved with Maine Inside Out, but just the theater program in general. So there's a lot of fear-mongering that's going on right now with these resolutions, and I find it appalling that you can actually pass something to force someone that's sitting on the school committee in her role to vote a certain way, and that this continues to go on. That's it.
Further public comment?
Hi, my name is Joelle Jackson. I live in Lisbon Falls, but I am a teacher here in Lewiston, currently at the middle school, and I was a teacher at Montello previously. I also am married to someone who is part of MIO, and so over the years, I've witnessed so much growth with some of the people who are sitting here, and I have very close relationships. So, but even though that is a personal thing, I have seen students go from Montello to the middle school, and one in particular went through the program at MIO last year. I knew the student very well. He was my student when he was younger, and when I saw him, he came up to me, and he was a different person. He went through so much growth, and other teachers had said the same thing about that particular student, as well as others. So I know what they bring. And in reference to Mr. LaGrange, you know, nothing ever reaches 100% of the participants to help them, but he wasn't there, and that was a completely separate issue. And, you know, no one has malintention. They're full of love and compassion, and they present students with alternative possibilities in life. And I urge you to think about a time that you may have had in your life when someone provided you an opportunity and helped you see a different way of going forward. And people with lived experience are the perfect people to show that to our youth and to stop this school-to-prison pipeline. And so as a teacher and as someone who is very close to MIO, and I love my husband very much, there he is, and everyone, it really hurts my heart. It breaks my heart to hear. And the fear-mongering, thank you for using that language, because that's what it is. It's just placing fear out there for people to grasp onto and not recognize the beauty that MIO brings to Lewiston and to the youth that live here in this town. And I just hope that you maybe can have the opportunity to go visit her class, any class, and see what really happens and the conversations that take place and the growth that takes place. Thank you for your time.
My name is Megan Parks. I live in Ward 7, and I'm the chair of the school committee. I had a whole statement prepared to speak tonight, but I'm going to save that by just simply saying I stand by my comments that I made at the school committee meeting last Monday. What I would like to speak on tonight is, as Councilor Clement stated, there has been some inaccurate information shared tonight. At no point did I say on Facebook anywhere that I was going to recall this vote. What I did share was in an email among school committee members that Robert's rules, as Councilor Clement shared, that at the very next meeting, somebody from the prevailing side can call this back up and have their voice heard, because 2 voting school committee members at the last meeting didn't realize what they were voting for until after the fact. And so in order to give them an opportunity to correct their vote, I provided them with the information around Robert's rules for how that could happen. I also did that so that the public could have public comment, which they were not able to have at the last meeting because school committee member Damon and school committee member Bowden had blocked all public comment by making the motion to table and the motion to, seconding that motion. So at no point did I say it in an instigating way, at no point was trying to egg people on, and at no point was it on Facebook. It was an email shared among school committee members that was very clearly then passed along to city councilors in order to create this fear-mongering that we're experiencing now. Thank you.
Carrie Jaded, now Ward 2 after redistricting. I'm here as a parent to support Maine Inside Out's continued and valuable involvement in our school district. My son, who's now a 9th grader, participated in the MIO program at the middle school for 2 years. You should have received his comment via email. Councilor Clement has proposed a resolution with the stated goal of, quote, affirming that the safety of our school children is of paramount importance, unquote. And who could argue? But fundamentally, this resolution and the mindset that produced it is grounded in the happy fantasy that the status quo is protecting our children just fine. It isn't. What I've seen as a parent attending the MIO performances at the middle school is that MIO starts its work from the premise that every participant has a story, and that each person's individual story combines with the stories of others to become a story of us, a story of now and of how we got here. And what our children's stories are telling us is that these kids are struggling to make sense of a world in which people with authority over them do not understand them. They are crying out to be seen for who they are. They already see how easy it is to reach for the self-defeating or violent solution rather than to walk the hard path of making things right. But in telling their stories through the MIO program, they are trying to walk that path. They are learning to be vulnerable with each other, to learn from each other, and to have each other's backs. In short, they are learning to be the citizens and the neighbors that we claim we want them to be. We are lucky to have Maine Inside Out offering this opportunity to our kids. Meanwhile, if members of this council want to protect our children, all our children, here are some things they could do. Insist on and lobby for levels of school funding that allow our schools to be fully staffed. Support funding for our excellent Lewiston Public Library. Ensure maintenance of and safe access to our local parks and recreational facilities. Engage with families who are concerned about violence in their neighborhoods to find mutually agreeable solutions. Take steps to help all families to have stable and supportive housing. I look forward to seeing your efforts on behalf of Lewiston's children. Thank you.
Excuse me, thank you. Further public comment? Public comment is now closed. There is, objectively speaking, this should never have made it on the agenda. I'm not sure how a non-binding resolution can be an emergency. This is really unfortunate, and it's clearly election year politics. I was meeting with Bruce from Inside Out the other day, and I appreciate the work that they do in our city and in our community. Further comment from councilors. Oh, Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. First, to Chairman Park's comment about not putting anything on Facebook, I happen to have a screenshot here from your webpage. It talks about what happened at the school board meeting, and the last paragraph says, "This subject will be discussed again at our next meeting on September 25th. Please feel free to attend and share your thoughts." So to say that you weren't working to bring it on and it wasn't public on Facebook is just plain wrong, and again, you lied to us about that, but that's neither here nor there. So from this comment is what motivated us to do this resolution, because we felt that it should be brought to the school committee's attention that the majority of the city council does not believe that MIL should be allowed back into the school. This is my problem with MIO, is their vetting process. It's obvious that there was a big letdown in the vetting process with this Mr. LaGrange. And the reality is that Mr. LaGrange attended a function at the school. And he could have very easily snapped at the school and killed a bunch of people. There's no doubt in my mind that this guy was deranged. If you look at his Facebook page, if you look at reports about him, he should never have been part of this program. So because he was allowed to be part of this program, it's a huge question mark for me about their vetting process. And then the other thing that really bothers me, and I need someone to explain it to me, is why anybody else that deals with our students, employees, teachers, parents that get involved, all have to pass a background check. But these guys, so if a parent has the same background as some of these individuals, they can't go on a field trip with their kids or their grandkids. But these people are allowed in the school. It's a double standard that shouldn't stand. I have no problem with the work that they do. I find it incredulous that we have to rely on them to teach drama at the school, that the school can't come up with a teacher or teachers that are not convicted felons to work with our students. It's a very impressionable age. They may have done great. I haven't talked to any of the kids that went through the program, but me as a grandfather, there's no way in the world that I want anyone from this group, considering their lack vetting process, to be involved with any of my kids, and I don't want them involved with any of school kids, never mind City of Lewiston, anywhere, until they make some sort of change in the vetting process, because to allow someone that would go out and shoot a couple in their car in front of their kids, he could have snapped at any time, and it could have been our kids that were shot. So that's my reasoning for feeling that A, they shouldn't be in our school, and B, this was an emergency measure because it's obvious from Chairwoman Parks's Facebook page that it was going to be coming up again on Monday, and it's very important that we voice our discontent with this even being on the agenda. Thank you.
Councilor Jelinas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a comment, I have a question. I'm not sure who to direct it to. I think it probably should go to the superintendent, but I'm just going to ask it. Does Maine Inside Out currently have an MOU with the Lewiston Public Schools?
We do not currently have an MOU that's been paused by school committee vote.
Thank you,
back in
Superintendent.
Further comments from the council? Councilor Scott?
By rules of governance, I think we all take a turn and go first. I've already spoken. I would offer Mr. LaChapelle, Councilor LaChapelle, to speak first, please.
Do you wish to say anything, Councilor LaChapelle?
Sure. I find this very rich, the righteous indignation from some of the counselors on rules and decorum and all this, and political election year politics. And we have a couple of them that were right here that when it doesn't go your way, it is election year politics. When it's going your way, that's just the normal standard rules, like appointing an ad hoc committee without informing the whole council or talking to people, making appointments without discussing it with other members of the board. Don't have to. Nothing in the rule says you have to, but yet we can pout and make all our faces and say that they're extremely disappointed with the council, but yet the pot's calling the kettle black, and it's doing it more than the other side. The MIO, I have no problem with the MIO, but I don't believe it belongs in the school system. I have no problem with students telling their stories. I question who is running it. I have no doubt that there's some positive things that have come out of it. No question in mind. If I'm going to be hung out to dry for something, I have no problem being hung out to dry to protect our students. And I feel that this has been overlooked, and now maybe this is something that the school department, not telling anybody what to do, but maybe this is something the school department should be talking with MIO and setting a better policy to ensure the protection of our students. This resolution, as Councilor Clement said, does not direct anything to the school department. We are not telling the school department to do anything. We have all authority to ask, to respectfully request our representative from this body to make a statement. We have that right to request that. Whether that representative carries that on, that is up to them. But it's a statement that is made that we have that right. We are not directing the school department to do a thing. We are requesting that our body send that message, and that is what that is. And if, again, for the protection of our students, and not for fear-mongering. Well, fear-mongering, I guess I'm pretty afraid of that guy. I'm pretty afraid of some of the other people that are in there. So I don't say it's fear-mongering, I say it's factual. And for people to, again, say fear-mongering, I'm going to reverse it back on the people that have said that to try to politicize something. This doesn't have to be this way. This doesn't have to be at all. The entire school committee, this entire council can say yes or no. You can make your decision, and your decision stands. Now, with every choice, there's actions and reactions. If we're just, the concern from my constituents that I've spoken to in Ward 4 is concerned about this group. I think, now, one of the questions that I had, and maybe I can ask Councilor Scott, I believe the tabling motion was to wait until there was more information, and I forget what that information was that they were requesting.
There was no date on the tabling motion to
Okay, but
answer
they
that
were waiting
question.
for-
So that was mentioned in the conversation, but the motion was tabled and seconded, and that was all, which means it's tabled indefinitely. There was no date to bring it back up again, nothing to that effect at all.
School committee members were asking for more information on
I asked for
something.
more information.
In regards to what?
To what the MOU was going to say, to the language that the superintendent had suggested in the MOU, and to the opportunity for Maine Inside Out to have a say in what those MOU language was. That was what I had asked for. There were others, but again, I don't think that we should be discussing the details of this at the city council level.
Well, I'm glad you don't think so. I think so, because I not only represent the Ward 4, I represent the children of Ward 4 and the parents of Ward 4 that go to that school committee. We have every right to request our school board representative to move one way. We have all rights. I do not have a right to tell the school committee what to do, but we do have a right to request. And that's all this is a request. And if I'm going to go down in flames, by golly, I'll gladly go down in flames in my feeling, is to protect my grandchildren that are in that school system also. Thank you. I'll have more comments later.
Councilor Harriman.
Thank you. Just want to point out the irony of somebody voicing concern for the constituents of Ward 4 after just voting to take away their voice on the school committee. Thank you.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you. So a couple of things. So first off, a comment that was made was that we all have phones. Yes, we all have phones, but I didn't get a phone call. Councilor Jelinas didn't get a phone call, and neither did Councilor Harriman. It was said that 4 councilors did discuss this. That's what one counselor said. Another counselor said he did not discuss this. I don't know, semantics at this point. A lawyer was contacted, a lawyer outside of city council, which means corporate counsel for the city council, which in my opinion should be the council that should be discussing anything that the council is going to be doing, was not spoken to. I'd like to point out the fact that a resolution or a motion by a municipal elected body does hold weight. This particular resolution says that whereas we resoundingly denounce this partnership as contrary to our avowed and overwhelming stance of ensuring our children's safety, it also says specifically that our appointed representative to the Lewiston School Committee, Council President Linda Scott, to carry a strong message of disapproval of this partnership to the school committee, and be it further resolved that we respectfully request she do everything in her power to encourage her colleagues to defeat any motion to reconsider, and if necessary, she personally vote in favor of leaving the item on the table where it currently lies, thereby affirming that the safety of our school children is of paramount importance to all elected officials. That not only asks me and request, that is making, in my opinion, if this is voted by a majority, to say a particular thing and to vote a particular way. And that, again, I will repeat, is not what the city council representative to the school committee is to do. I will carry your message. I will tell the school committee exactly what is said at every meeting, as I do, and I tell you what is said at each school committee meeting. We will have conversations and try to facilitate meetings together. That's what the representative does. I will talk to you about the budget process and what the budget process is with the school committee, and to the school committee what the budget process is with the city council. But I am a sworn member of the school committee. There is a difference there. That's what needs to be recognized. And as a sworn member of the school committee, I vote and work as a school committee member. Furthermore, I would just like to let it be known that if they were so concerned about things, there are many ways that this could be addressed. And it doesn't have to be a resolve by the city council. You could have easily tonight at the other section brought this up as a concern of yours and said that we want to look at a possible resolve. You would have then included all 7 city councilors in this discussion, and it not look like and perceived and perception that it was done behind the scenes. And I just want you to understand that. And I feel that it's disrespectful. I do. You could also reach out to your cohorts on the school committee and express as much as you want how much you think this is inappropriate. You could go to the school committee meetings and express your opinion as a citizen of this community and be concerned and talk about your grandchildren. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. What this does, it sets precedent. Whether it's you doing it or it's a new city council or anybody else out there, it sets possible precedent for the future for other councilors or even the school committee to think that they can set a resolve like this to the city council, or the city council can make a direction towards the school committee. They are 2 separate elected bodies. And for that, I cannot support this. I will not support it, and I don't feel comfortable with this whatsoever. And the whole thing I'm bringing up here is our rules of governance and our charter. And I stand by everything that I said. Thank you.
Further, Councilor Clement?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just one point to what Councilor Scott just said. Yeah, we all have phones. I've not received a phone call from you since January 3rd of 2023. And nothing, to other councilors' comments here tonight, nothing prevents individual councilors from talking to one another. I have conversations with constituents. You don't know who I've talked to on the school committee or whether I've talked to anybody on the school committee. I know there is a sentiment on the school committee that this not be brought back again. But I feel, as Councilor LaChapelle said, I feel a very strong feeling about safety. My entire adult life has been involved with these types of things. There are people involved with this organization that are forbidden by state statute from having any contact with children. Any contact. So I would hope those people are not in our school because they're violating state statute. So nothing here is to say that I'm against MIO. I do think that we need to come up with a better plan. I don't think this organization should be in our schools during the school day. I don't think they should be using our school resources during the school day. If they want to get together a group and have children come there, they can be like some other organizations, have them come. They don't need to be using our schools for this. And I take personal offense at some of the comments that have been made here tonight. Nobody is trying to do anything to the school committee. You've read the resolve. I'm sure that you understand the English language. You use it quite well. Nothing in here is other than respectfully requesting. Respectfully requesting. I don't know how much simpler that could be. I could work on it if you'd like, but no, this is what's before us. And the talk about consulting with an attorney, yeah, we need not consult with Corporation Counsel. Okay, if we have an admitted attorney of some experience in these matters available to us that's willing to talk with us, we asked an opinion of him. Nothing says that we have to go to Corporation Counsel any more than, I mean, this whole idea of this being an emergency, yeah. The action may take place Monday evening. I think it's been said, and I think everybody here understands that this matter has been laid on the table. It can be taken off the table. In order to do that, somebody from the majority side of the vote on that particular item must request reconsideration of that item. And then there's a vote on reconsideration. That's either up or down. If its motion is approved, then you can take up whether or not you're going to allow this motion to be killed or whatever at that point in time. But yeah, it can be brought up. It can be brought up only Monday night. So if we pass Monday night and nothing happens, the matter is moot. It's dead. It has been tabled indefinitely, but it can be reconsidered as long as it's reconsidered by the next session of that body. Do you agree with that? I rest my case. Thank you.
Further comments from the council? Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for Superintendent Langleis. If you would step to the mic, please. Background checks. Who do you do background checks on that's involved with the schools at all levels, and who gets a pass and does not have to pass a background check?
So background checks, they vary by different components. The state does a fair amount of the background checks. We also do some through a local provider, or we do them locally, I should say, through different access for volunteers and other folks that are in our schools, work with our kids, coaches, things like that. Obviously, employees are background checks. We work with a number of organizations with different memorandums of understanding. Our kids are in and out of those different facilities for a number of reasons. Sometimes they're in our schools for a number of reasons. We ask them to vet and train their staff before they are working with our children.
Okay, so I'm right to say that if I want to take my grandkids, accompany my grandkids on a field trip, I would have to pass a background check?
We would request a background check for you to have access to that. I will say that we have an internal review process, and it's not just clean records that participate in school-related events. We try to look at the makeup of the events, you know, what were potential histories, when was it, what kind of crime was it. I've even met with parents who want to be involved in their students' education, who have a record, to assess that myself, and then I use my discretion to make the best decision I can. But so there have been some people on field trips that do have a record, that we have checked, that we have talked about.
Do you know any of the background of the individuals that were from MIO that participated at the high school? I mean, at the middle school?
I do know some of them, having worked with them, having conversations around some
Do you
of the
know their
things.
backgrounds?
I've not run their backgrounds myself.
So you have no idea what they've done?
I mean, further than relationships and conversations, I do not.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, sir, public comment is over. Yeah, if you have public comment, you can feel free to email publiccomment@lewistonmaine.gov. Further discussion from the council?
I work in Maine and Center. I would just like to clarify one piece.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
1 second, sir. Councilor Clement?
Point of order. Public comment is closed.
Yes, I agree. I'm sorry, public comment is closed. Further discussion from the council? in hearing, some of the feedback, they just want to ask our school representative to, respectfully request that they vote a certain way. It sounds like this entire resolution just could have been an email.
Maybe.
Anyone else before we vote?
I do.
Councilor McCarthy?
I think it's being public, being on the TV, people can review it on YouTube. I think it's important for the whole city to see how the council feels and not just an email between councilors. So I think it was very important to get this out in front of the public. And I do have to say that anyone that has watched a school committee meeting will struggle watching it because you can't tell who's talking. The video is terrible. I know they're trying to work on it. I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying that the public forum for the city council is far and away above what the school committee offers from a outside looking in perspective. So it was important that people get an understanding of not only that we are against, but why we are against. And so that's why I thought it was important that this come up at this meeting. And the reality is Councilor Scott suggested that we could have done this later in the session. I'm at a loss because we got hammered early in our term for not having something on the agenda and springing it at the last minute. So by putting it on the agenda, we had the public here, we had the councilors knew ahead of time what they were going to be voting on, they could read it, understand it. So I think it was very important that it was handled the way it was. And looking at Chairwoman Park's comment on Facebook that it will be on the table on the 25th, that's what brought the emergency measure out of this. And that's why I support this resolution.
Councilor Clement.
Very briefly, Mr. Mayor. To the councilor's comment that, yeah, it could have been an email. Emails disappear once sent, once read, deleted, whatever. They disappear into some server somewhere. This is a resolution of the city council. It'll be spread upon the records of the city. It'll either be voted up or it'll be voted down. But people have had an opportunity to debate this here tonight and find out how their council representative feels. I know in conversations that I've had with constituents in my ward, they think that this thing is a travesty. They can't understand why this is happening in our schools. I've always voted the wishes of my constituents. I pride myself on constituent service. That's what I'll do tonight. Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councilor from Ward 5?
Could you repeat the motion?
Sure, I'm sorry, absolutely.
Yes.
The motion before you is to adopt the resolution pertaining to the safety of our children.
Yes.
Councilor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor from Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
No.
Ward 1?
No.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
No.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 4 to 3.
We are now up to reports and updates. Councilor Scott.
Thank you. I have a few things to report this evening. First, I'd like to report on the school committee meeting that happened on September 11th, 2023. I won't reiterate the particular point that we just discussed. That was on the agenda that night. I would like to say that it was great to recognize the store next door and the school event that they put on for our students. It was a great success. We had school representation from all of our different schools at the Longley parking lot where the store next door is. Hundreds of backpacks were given out to our students. Hundreds of pieces of supplies were given out, and I was really proud to see them get recognized, as well as all those that work with our children that may be either homeless or need some extra supports in that area. All those folks were recognized in all of our schools, and I really appreciated that. We also received a great proposal by Caden's Kitchen to support students and families in need. This was another proposal that was done. It is by QR code where somebody could actually put the QR code in their phone and say that day that this student in my class doesn't have a jacket. Might you have one? And Caden's Kitchen will find supports to even maybe get that jacket to the student by the end of the day. It was another great program that will help our students in need. I have some information on that. It's the PowerPoint we received. If anybody's interested in looking at that, it's right there available. We also voted to potentially voted and follow up on an energy cost saving conversation. We did pass that to look at an energy provider. We also went through several policies that we're going through, and I commend our policy subcommittee, who is doing a tremendous amount of work looking at all of these different policies in place and updating them to current standards. And then we had reports and updates, and we went into executive session. I'd also like to report out for the Lewiston Youth Advisory Council. They met last Thursday for their first meeting with the new council members, and they've already chosen their project that they'll be working on. They chose, their first focus project is going to be called the Dream Project. You can reach your dreams not only in your sleep, is the slogan that they came up with. And this is to raise the aspirations of Lewiston youth in our community by talking about either going to college, finding different jobs, going to LRTC, looking at different trade programs. They're going to be working on talking about this with elementary school kids, middle school kids, and high school kids, working with the aspirations teacher at the high school, but also working with, they talked about reaching out to the fire department, the police department, public works, and all the library teachers, having them come in and do career days for different students, and really encouraging kids to move on and find a great direction in their future. And I thought that was a great project for them to be working on. I'm also going to quickly report out on the safety committee that did meet last Thursday by using a design challenge approach. Every member had a great conversation by identifying specific issues around safety and discussed specific problems that they want to solve. We did come up with 4 specific areas. There was many areas that were talked about. But a couple of the things we talked about was multilingual language barriers and access with the community and with access for the community and the police, particularly around emergency situations, space for relationship building, credible voices and community leadership for our youth who are disengaged in our community, actually talking to kids specifically about their leadership roles with their groups, and maybe finding a way to inspire them to encourage their peers that it's let's go play soccer instead of doing other things that may not be appropriate in our community. And then we also talked about more youth activities engagement. Our next meeting will be October 5th from 3:30 to 5 o'clock. Also at the Callahan Hall, we will be discussing gathering data and support for fact-finding on the different subjects that we brought up. And as I emailed you all last time on our meeting and sent you the agenda, I will be sending the agenda out again. And I would encourage not only yourselves, but the police union president, our police administration, and any police officer to join us in these conversations. Thank you.
Want to let people know that Dempsey is this Saturday, Dempsey Challenge, and it's not too late to register. Councilor Clement?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just briefly for my colleagues on the council, the Finance Committee has moved the redundant water main project further along. We approved bids that were sent in to get that project rolling. I know that's been on discussion many, many times over the last 4 years. So the project should be coming to fruition. I just can't give you a timetable. I think that depends. We have 2 major contractors that are going to join together to get the work done. And this is a cooperative effort that I think deserves recognition. And they actually came in with pretty good bids for a change. I mean, we have some that will challenge your wisdom at times to look at, but I think we can be pleased with what's going to happen in that regard. Thank you.
Councilor LaChapelle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. LawPac recently met last week. We have received information from the state of Maine on the line that they're recommending, which is further back than the current line that exists. LawPac is sending a letter to the Auburn Planning Board
making some suggestions on where that line should be, and we're still talking about possibly picking up more land for protection of the lake. At this point, I think it would be prudent for us to have an executive session at some point so we can discuss where we are and what the city of Lewiston, how the city of Lewiston wants to move forward. So it was a good meeting. Next week, we're having another, that other subcommittee meeting to see how we can iron out some of the issues and moving forward. It was a great meeting that we had a few weeks ago, and we're just going to still hammer out some details to make things smoother between the three bodies, Auburn Water District, LawPac, and the city of Lewiston. Thank you.
Councilor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If there's anybody out there watching that's in Ward 5 that's a senior and would like to join the committee, we greatly appreciate it. We can't seem to get anybody. There are other committees that are lacking help. We're having a hard time finding volunteers for those. So if you have any interest at all, or would just like to talk about them, just let us know. We're glad to talk with you on it. Thank you.
Councilor Jelinas.
Just want to let people know that the Lewiston Area Public Health Committee is going to be hosting the 3rd annual Rally for Recovery on Saturday, September 30th, Kennedy Park from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. We've got a great lineup of people ready to share their recovery journeys. We've got some family members sharing some lived experiences, and some great musical entertainment as well. Lots of food. We've got some great sponsors, obviously City of Lewiston, and then we have Pathway Vineyard Church is showing up in a big way. Starbucks, Italian Bakery, Recovery Connections of Maine, and I think that, oh, and Webb's Market, yes, Webb's Market, thank you. So thankful to the community that's coming around to make this event a success, and just give you all a warm welcome to come and hang out with us.
Councilor Harriman.
Thank you. Just a couple committee updates. The Housing Committee, we met recently. We're focusing on housing production goals as our top priority to look at. Also responding to and advising on City Council initiated items regarding housing. Also the Transit Committee, we recently welcomed the new member, Monique Roy. CityLink also recently got 2 brand new buses. We took delivery of them. They should be on the road at this point. So that gets us back up to the recommended number of both active and spare buses in our fleet. And this isn't exactly an update, but Rosh Hashanah was this past weekend, so Happy New Year to all our friends who celebrate.
Back to you, Councilor Clement.
We're at new business.
Not quite yet,
Okay,
but
well,
we're getting there.
I'll yield until new business then.
Yeah, okay. Further reports and updates. And now, Councilor Clement, we're at
We're
new
now
business.
at new business. Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor. I just would like to pose a question to the city clerk having to do with our upcoming election. There'll be a date, I know, when you can apply for absentee ballots, a date when in-person voting will open here, I believe, again at City Hall. And I'd just like to know what those dates are,
Sure.
if you have those.
Sure, thank you, councilors.
Put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. No, I appreciate the opportunity to get the information out to the residents. So November 7th, Tuesday, November 7th, will be a state and municipal election. There are 8 referendum questions on the state ballot. Information is on the Secretary of State's website, also linked to the city website. And then, of course, we have the election for mayor, city council, and school committee. All of our regular polling places will be open. Polls will be 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Let me be clear on absentee ballots because there's always confusion. People can start to request absentee ballots as early as August. So we have a little less than 100 requests for absentee ballots. Absentee ballots are not available, though, until 30 days before any election. We do not have absentee ballots yet in hand. So we're always cautious when we let folks know. They hear the word absentee ballot and they come down to City Hall expecting to vote, and then they're disappointed when they hear, well, I can just order it now, but I can't get it and vote it now. So we're cautious with that. So absentee ballots are always available 30 days prior to Election Day. So our goal is October 6th. We are hoping to have those in hand by the state and the city printer, barring any production errors or delays. We don't know. So October 6th, absentee ballots should be available. October 23rd, which is a Monday, is when we will kick off the early voting polling place here in the City Council chambers. So Monday, October 23rd through Thursday, November 2nd. I think that's November 2nd. Thursday, November 2nd. And that's usually the night that we stay open late until 7 p.m. to accommodate folks who maybe can't come in here during the day. We will not be open Saturdays and Sundays, so it'll be Monday through Friday, October 23rd through November 2nd. Information is on the city website regarding election details, and certainly folks are welcome to call our office at any time.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thanks.
Councilor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to add something to that absentee ballot stuff.
Yes, sir.
They have to bring them here. They can't receive them at the polling places. They
Yes.
have to come to City Hall.
Correct, thank you. So ballots are not to be returned to the polling place on Election Day. That has always been the policy of the city, and it is a control mechanism because if someone took out an absentee ballot and they submitted an application, we have to match up the signature on the envelope that's returned. All of those applications are here at City Hall. So on Election Day, the city clerk's office on the second floor will be staffed from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., the same hours the polls are open. So you're right, all absentee ballots need to be returned here. They can be returned during City Hall hours to our counter. We will also open the absentee ballot drop box right outside the entrance here. We will uncover that, and that's accessible 24/7 for folks to drop off in the evenings or on the weekends, and we empty that multiple times during the day, multiple times when it gets full. But you're right, absentee ballots need to be returned here to City Hall. Yes, thank you.
So under new business, we have winter months coming up here soon, and I would like to quickly discuss what thoughts are for a warming center here, warming shelter, warming center here for Lewiston. We got a late start last time. I appreciate all the organizations that were involved, but we need to get started a little sooner this time. And then I was just talking with Administrator Hunter earlier today. In the past day or two, Maine State Housing has put out an RFP for funds that could be used for a warming center / shelter. Is that correct?
That's correct. We received it yesterday afternoon.
Okay. So, obviously with a warming center shelter here in Lewiston, there's a few things to hash out, money certainly being one of them. But yes, apparently there are funds available through Maine State Housing. I'd just like to get my counselor's feedback on this. Councilor Harriman?
Thank you. Would that be something that we'd workshop or have an agenda item in the future for? I would be generally in support. I'd like to see any proposals that are out there and talk about it as a group.
Councilor Jelinas?
Yeah, I'm supportive of, a more thoughtful approach this time, and we kind of came together quickly and did the best we could. But I think, getting a jump start on this and having some thoughtful discussion around it makes good sense. I'm in support of that as well.
Councilor Clement?
Yeah, is this something that perhaps should go out on the city's website announcing these funds being available for somebody to submit RFPs?
I can read the language. I've been tied up, unfortunately, today. One thing I think is important, at least that I'm getting from some of the agencies, is to get a consensus among council to move forward in our community this year. So I guess that's kind of the hope, that we would get some direction tonight to kind of take that next step.
Certainly, I'd be open to any discussion on the subject.
Can we do a thumbs up?
Well, it sounded like I heard some.
In favor.
Yeah.
Most of us, yeah.
Okay.
Any other thoughts on that from anyone? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Further new business. We are now moving to an executive session. Madam Clerk.
Yes.
Huh?
You said it's going to take like 2 minutes.
Oh, I see.
So, executive session, item number 15, executive session pursuant to Maine Revised Statutes Annotated Title I, Section 4056A, to discuss a personnel matter. Requested action to enter into an executive session pursuant to Maine Revised Statutes Title I, Section 4056A, to discuss a personnel matter.
So moved.
Motion, Councilor McCarthy, signed by Councilor Pease. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.